The office Christmas party was louder than usual this year. Glasses clinked, someone spilled eggnog on the catering table, and Last Christmas was playing for the third time. I stood near the balcony doors, nursing a sparkling water, trying not to glare at the woman across the room who used to be my wife in every way that counted. My name is Delaney Voss. I'm 34, a freelance graphic designer living in Portland, Oregon. And that woman? That's Riley, my wife of 7 years. Or rather, the woman who stopped acting like my wife about 6 months ago. "Babe, you okay?" she asked earlier tonight, adjusting the strap of her crimson dress, barely looking up from her phone. "Yeah, just tired," I lied. Truth is, I wasn't tired. I was on edge. For weeks now, Riley had been different, distant, glued to her phone, working late even though she's in HR, and always talking about her coworker, Trent, like he was some harmless golden retriever who just happened to text her past midnight. So I did what I never thought I would. I followed her. She said she'd be late because of team planning. But when I parked a block away from her office building, I saw her walk inside wearing heels too high for planning. She didn't see me behind the tinted windows of my car. Hours later, when the building seemed almost empty, I crept in. My heart thundered in my chest like a drumline. I knew the place. I'd dropped off lunch before. I knew where her department was. And I knew the break room had a vent that carried sound straight into the hallway. That's where I stood when I heard her laugh. That laugh, soft, breathy, reserved only for late nights and bedroom jokes. Then Trent spoke. "If your wife ever finds out." "She won't," Riley said quickly. "She doesn't pay attention anymore." My nails dug into my palm. My legs wanted to give out. But I stayed frozen, hidden, listening. Every word after that was a dagger. Something shifted inside me right then. Not heartbreak, not yet. First came clarity. Then I heard a chair scrape. Footsteps. And her voice again, closer. "Did you hear something?" I stepped into the light before I could stop myself. Riley's face turned the color of her wine. Trent nearly dropped his coffee. And she said, with a nervous laugh, "Delaney, what are you doing here?" I stared at her, then Trent, then back. "What am I doing here?" I repeated. "That's rich." She blinked. "Wait, let me explain." But I was already walking away. Because I had just come up with the perfect plan. I didn't go home that night. I drove to a 24-hour diner near Powell's Books, ordered black coffee I didn't drink, and stared at the chipped ceramic mug for hours. Riley had betrayed me. Not just in the way she laughed at Trent's stupid jokes, or the way she wore that dress for him, but in how easily she dismissed me. She doesn't pay attention anymore. I paid too much attention. That was the problem. By sunrise, I had a plan. It started with the one thing Riley loved more than anything, her image. See, Riley didn't just work in human resources. She was the Riley Voss, corporate culture influencer, frequent guest on those HR podcast circuits, panel speaker for ethical workplace boundaries. Her LinkedIn was a shrine to female leadership and authenticity. And Trent? He was a mid-level manager with a wife, 2 kids, and a baby on the way. So no, I wasn't going to yell, or cry, or beg. I was going to listen, watch, collect. I moved back into my studio space 2 days later under the pretense of a creative block. Riley didn't fight it, too relieved, maybe, that I wasn't causing a scene. "Take your time," she said over the phone. "Just, don't shut me out, okay?" I didn't answer. Instead, I opened a fresh file on my laptop titled, Insurance. First, I printed the screenshots I had taken that night. Texts between her and Trent. She'd left her phone open while talking to him in the break room, never realizing my phone was recording it all. The nicknames. The late-night rendezvous. The proof. Then I started digging deeper. I created a burner social profile, followed both of them, joined the company Slack anonymously using a spoofed internal email, and just like that, I was in. They were sloppy. They joked in channels. Trent sent her a meme about mandatory overtime with a winking emoji. Riley replied, "I'll make it worth your while." Every screenshot, every message, I archived it. And then I emailed myself a copy of the company handbook. On page 47, under Conduct and Compliance, it read, "Romantic relationships between managerial staff and subordinate employees must be disclosed immediately to avoid conflicts of interest. Failure to do so may result in termination." Trent was technically her subordinate. And Riley? Well, she wrote the damn handbook. So I smiled. Because the trap was already built. And all I had to do was wait for them to step into it. A week later, Riley invited me to dinner. "We need to talk," she said over the phone, her voice softer than it had been in months. I agreed. Not because I wanted to fix anything, but because I needed more time, more rope for her to hang herself with. We met at her favorite rooftop bar downtown, the one with overpriced cocktails and heated lamps that made everyone look like influencers. Riley showed up looking polished, calculated. She was wearing the gold locket I gave her for our 3rd anniversary. "Thanks for coming," she said, tucking her hair behind her ear. "I've been doing a lot of thinking." I nodded. "Me too." She paused. "Delaney, I feel like we've been drifting, and I own my part in that. But I want to fix this. I want us to find our way back." I blinked. Was she serious? Back to what? I asked. To us. A part of me almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was absurd. She looked at me like she was rewriting history in real time, like the late-night texts, the hand on Trent's shoulder, the breathless giggles weren't all echoing in my head. "You cheated," I said flatly. "With someone from your office." Her lips tightened. "It wasn't like that." "Oh, what was it like?" She glanced around. No one was paying attention, but Riley was always performing. "It was complicated. Trent and I were talking a lot. It never got serious. You and I were distant. There's nothing complicated about lying." That shut her up. She reached for her drink, then stopped. "Look, I messed up. But if you're willing to forgive me." I leaned in. "I'm not." Her breath caught. I kept going. "I'm not here to forgive. I'm not here to fight, either. I'm here to watch." "Watch what?" "You'll see." She laughed, uncomfortable. "Are you trying to scare me?" "No," I said, standing up. "I'm giving you a head start." And with that, I left her there, cocktail untouched, mouth open, eyes tracking me all the way to the elevator. The next morning, I submitted the anonymous report to her company's ethics hotline, complete with PDF attachments of text messages, Slack transcripts, and policy violations. I even watermarked it with a fake law firm name, just to give it teeth. Then I created a burner email with the subject line, "Your queen has fallen." It went out to every member of her company's leadership team. By Monday morning, the silence was deafening. No texts. No emails. No passive-aggressive "hope you're well" messages from Riley. Just radio silence. Until 2:17 p.m. My phone lit up. "Riley, 10 missed calls." Then a text. "You did something. Call me. Now." I didn't. Instead, I opened Instagram. Riley's profile, which was usually a carousel of motivational quotes, conference selfies, and iced matcha, had gone dark. All her work posts were suddenly gone. Comments disabled. Bio scrubbed clean. I flipped over to LinkedIn. Her job title had changed from HR Director, People First Leadership Advocate to nothing. She'd removed it entirely. By 5 p.m., it was confirmed. One of her co-workers, a woman I barely knew but had once met at a company mixer, DM'd my burner account. Not sure what happened, but Riley's out. Effective immediately. Word is there's an investigation into improper conduct and non-disclosed relationship violations. Everyone's freaking out. I smiled. That evening, I dropped by our house, still technically mine, though I hadn't stayed there in weeks. Riley was already waiting at the kitchen counter, pacing, hands gripping her phone like it might save her. "You ruined my life," she said, eyes wild. "No," I said calmly. "You ruined your own life. I just took off the filter." "You had no right." I cut her off. You brought Trent into our marriage. Into your job. Onto your phone. And you didn't even try to hide it. Her voice cracked. This was my career, Delaney. You built it on lies. She stared at me like I was a stranger. And maybe I was, or maybe I was just the version of myself she never thought she'd meet. I was going to end it with him, she said, tears starting to fill her eyes. Too late. Riley dropped into a bar stool like the weight of it finally hit her. You don't get it. They're talking about legal action. Trent's wife found out too. His entire department is under review. My heart thumped. So she knows now. She nodded slowly. She sent me a photo of our texts. Highlighted. Good for her. Riley looked up, eyes sharp. What do you want from me, Delaney? That was the million-dollar question. But the truth was, I didn't want anything from her anymore. She had nothing left to give. Except maybe. I want the house, I said. What? You heard me. I want your half signed over. Full transfer. And I'll walk away clean. Her mouth fell open. You're blackmailing me. No, I said, leaning against the doorway. I'm offering you mercy. She stared at me, stunned, not speaking. And then, her phone buzzed. A text from Trent. We're screwed. Riley didn't answer Trent's message. She just stared at the screen, jaw tight, eyes flicking like she was deciding whether to scream or cry. Or both. You're serious, she finally said, voice brittle. As a subpoena, I replied. She laughed, sharp and humorless. You think you can just take half the house because I screwed up? I stepped closer. I think I can take all of it. Because I have evidence. Because I'm the one who didn't commit a fireable offense. And because your company just cut you loose faster than last year's diversity consultant. She swallowed hard. I can make this public, I added. I haven't. Yet. You wouldn't dare, she whispered. I raised a brow. Try me. She looked like she was going to argue, but then her shoulders dropped. Something inside her buckled. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was guilt finally catching up. Or maybe she realized she wasn't holding any cards anymore. When? She asked quietly. Friday. I'll have the transfer documents ready. She nodded once, slowly. Then she turned and walked down the hall like a woman walking toward her own execution. That Friday, she showed up at my studio. No makeup. No tailored blazer. Just sweatpants and shame. She signed the papers without a word, only pausing once to glance at me. Are you happy now? No, I said. But I'm free. When she left, I didn't cry. I didn't even flinch. I just poured myself a glass of wine and walked barefoot across the hardwood floors of what was now fully my home. 2 days later, I got a call from her company's compliance officer. They wanted a formal statement for their internal investigation. I gave it. Calmly. Factually. No embellishments. They asked if I'd be willing to sign an affidavit. Gladly, I said. Because I wasn't just after justice. I was after closure. That same week, I received an email from a publishing blog asking if I'd be open to writing a piece about navigating betrayal with emotional intelligence. Apparently, one of my design clients had shared my situation, minus the names, and the blog thought it would make a powerful narrative. Funny how things circle back. I started drafting the article that night, but I didn't rush. I wanted every word to hit like a truth bomb. And the final line. Let's just say it was already written in my head. But before that, I had one more move to make. I didn't plan to talk to Trent's wife. But she found me first. It started with an email to my business account. The subject line just said, "Hi. I think we're on the same side." Her name was Marissa Calloway. Kindergarten teacher. 2 kids. Married for 9 years. I'm not reaching out for drama, she wrote. I just need someone who understands what this kind of betrayal feels like. And I think that might be you. I hesitated. Then replied. 1 email became 5. Then a phone call. Then coffee at a quiet corner cafe where no one knew our names. She was beautiful, in that soft, unshakable way women become when they've had to carry too much for too long. Her eyes didn't water when she talked about the affair. They burned. They lied, she said. To both of us. They kept texting, even after I confronted him. He said it was professional follow-up. She actually air-quoted it. Can you believe that? I can, I said bitterly. Riley told me I was imagining things. That I needed space to work on my anxiety. Marissa exhaled, steady. So what happens now? I already made sure Riley's out of a job, I told her. And I took the house. She signed it over in exchange for silence. Marissa raised her eyebrows. Savage. I smiled. Strategic. She leaned forward. I've filed for separation. I told Trent he has 1 week to get out of the house. My lawyer says I have grounds for fault divorce. I'm going after full custody. I nodded. Let me know if you need anything. She looked at me. Actually, I might. She reached into her purse and slid a printed photo across the table. A screenshot. Riley and Trent, at a hotel bar, hands way too close, time-stamped after she had supposedly ended it. There's a woman in HR at their company. I think she covered for them, Marissa said. This photo could help expose the whole rot. If we both send it in. I looked at the picture. Riley's face, frozen mid-laugh. Trent looking at her like she was the only woman in the world. I felt the old bitterness rise in my throat. But it didn't hurt the same way anymore. It burned cleaner. Let's finish what we started, I said. Marissa smiled. War paint on. I clinked my coffee cup against hers. Let's go to battle. 3 days later, Riley's company announced a full-scale internal audit. It started with a quiet memo, just a few vague lines about policy reviews and third-party evaluations, but by lunchtime, it was all over LinkedIn. Turns out, Riley and Trent weren't the only ones bending the rules. With Marissa's help, we uncovered 3 more undisclosed relationships inside the company. 2 involving HR staff who had covered for each other, 1 involving a VP and his assistant. The web ran deeper than either of us expected. The board had no choice. They hired outside counsel. Cleared house. 4 terminations. 2 resignations. And Riley. Her reputation was the first to shatter. Every article she'd ever been quoted in about workplace boundaries was quietly pulled. Her podcast interviews were deleted. She became invisible online, a ghost in Google search. One morning, Marissa forwarded me a press release. Company X takes ethics seriously and is committed to rebuilding trust from the inside out. That's corporate speak for we got caught and we're bleeding money. Meanwhile, my inbox was overflowing. That article I'd agreed to write. It hit a nerve. Titled The Quiet Strength of Knowing the Truth, it exploded within a week. Over 70,000 views. Emails from women who'd lived through similar betrayals. One producer even reached out, asking if I'd consider turning it into a docuseries pitch. I wasn't ready to say yes, but I wasn't saying no either. Riley tried calling again. Left a voicemail this time. Delaney, please. I know I made mistakes, but you've taken everything. I don't even recognize myself anymore. I didn't respond. Not out of spite. Out of peace. Sometimes silence is the loudest answer you can give someone. Marissa texted me later that week. He moved out. The kids are asking fewer questions. I'm breathing again. I replied. Same here. We met up one last time, sitting across from each other at that same cafe. This time, there were no tears. No vengeance. Just a shared, silent knowing. Do you ever wish you'd never known? She asked. I shook my head. Knowing is how I got free. She smiled. So what now? I move forward, I said. Without her. Without lies. Without anyone making me feel small in my own story. Marissa reached into her coat pocket and handed me a tiny envelope. What's this? Gift card, she said with a grin. Spa day. You've earned it. I laughed, genuinely this time. For the first time in months, I felt light, whole. And ready. The sky was clear the day I changed the locks. A locksmith came around 10 a.m., clean-cut guy named Leo, didn't ask questions, just nodded when I told him the ex had moved out. It happens more than you'd think, he said, swapping out the last deadbolt. But hey, fresh start, right? Exactly, I said, watching the old key drop into my hand like a relic.